Good morning, dear students. Let's start with the valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. The Lewis concept was not able to explain the shape of the molecules. What I mean by shape is, it is the relative arrangement of the bonded atoms in a molecule. We call shape also as the geometry of the molecule. So the Lewis concept was not able to explain the geometry of the molecule. Then in 1940, Sidgwick and Powell, they proposed a very simple theory which was based on the repulsive interactions of the electron pairs in the valence shell of the atoms. So they suggested that the shape of the molecules can be determined by the number of electron pairs, which can be bonding electron pairs or non-bonding electron pairs, and they are present in the valence shell of the central atom, and thus they proposed a theory which is known as valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. The basic idea of this theory is that the bonded atoms in a molecule, they adopt that particular arrangement in space around the central atom which keeps them as far apart as possible. Let us see the postulates of the valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. The first postulate is the shape of the molecule depends upon the number of valence shell electron pair around the central atom. For example, if I talk about methane, this is a methane. So carbon is having 4 valence electrons. Now it is to form bonds with hydrogen, which also is providing 1 electron. So carbon has completed its octet, hydrogen has also become a duplet. So now the number of electron pairs around the central atom are 4. So if there are 4 electron pairs around the central atom, then the geometry of the molecule is tetrahedral. Now if I talk of these all 4 electron pairs, they are all bond pairs, right? Now if I talk about water, so oxygen is having 6 valence electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5th and 6th electron of the oxygen is making a bond with hydrogen. Okay, so these are 2 bond pairs and these are lone pairs. So these are lone pairs, these are bond pairs. I can represent like this. These are the lone pairs. So total electron pairs are 4, but these electrons which are not involved in bonding, they are known as lone pair. So there are 2 lone pair and 2 bond pairs, right? So if there are 4 electron pairs, we have discussed that the geometry should be tetrahedral, but the presence of these lone pairs, they distort the geometry, they spoil the geometry of the molecule, and so as a result of this, water is having a bent shape. So from the valence theory, valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, what we came to know about the shapes of the molecule. Okay, so let us see this, that the shape of the molecule depends upon the number of valence shell electron pairs which can be bonded or non-bonded around the central atom. When I say non-bonded, means they are the lone pair electrons. Then these electron pairs, they repel one another, definitely because they are having the same charge. Then the next postulate is that the electron pairs, they try to occupy such positions in space which minimize the repulsion, that is, they try to be as far apart as possible. So they adopt a geometry. Why they adopt such a geometry? So that they are as far apart as possible. Then we can assume that the valence shell can be taken as a sphere where the electron pairs, they are localized on the spherical surface and they are at maximum distance from one another. Then the multiple bond is treated as if it is a single electron pair. Then when 2 or more resonance structures represent a molecule, the Vesper model is applicable to any such structure. Then the next postulate was the repulsive interactions they decrease in the order lone pair, lone pair repulsion greater than lone pair bond pair repulsion greater than bond pair repulsion. So Nielholm and Gillespie, they refined the VSEPR model by saying that the lone pairs, they are localized on the central atom, whereas the bonded pair is shared between two atoms. So the lone pair electrons in a molecule occupy more space as compared to the bonding pair of electron, as a result of which there is greater repulsion between the lone pair of electrons as compared to the lone pair and bond pair repulsions. So this you need to remember that lone pair repulsions, they are greater than lone pair repulsions, and which in turn are greater than the bond pair repulsions, because the lone pair electrons, they occupy more space as compared to the bond pair electrons, as a result of which there is a greater repulsion between the lone pair of electrons. I hope this is clear to everyone. So you need to remember lone pair repulsion greater than lone pair bond pair repulsion, and which in turn is greater than the bond pair repulsions. Now, in order to predict the shapes of the molecules with the help of the VSEPR theory, we will divide the molecules into two categories. One in which the molecules in which the central atom has no lone pair. So we will study this under two broad headings. One is, we'll consider those molecules in which the central atom has no lone pair, and the second category will be in which the central atom has lone pair as well as bond pairs. So we will study the different tables. One more thing you need to remember is that repulsive forces, they decrease sharply as the angle increases. Okay, so they are strong at 90 degree. Repulsive forces are strong at 90 degree. They are weaker at 120 and weakest at 180 degree. So the molecule, if there are two electron pairs around the central atom, they try to be as far apart as possible, and while doing so they adopt a linear geometry. And if there are three electron pairs around the central atom, the best possible arrangement is that they adopt a trigonal planar geometry, because in this way they are as far apart as possible. Then if there are four electron pairs around the central atom, then they try to adopt a tetrahedral geometry, because by doing so they are as far apart as possible, and in this way they minimize the repulsions and thus increase their stability. If we have 5 electron pairs around the central atom, then the best possible arrangement is trigonal bipyramidal, in which they try to be they are as far apart as possible. In trigonal bipyramidal, there are two types of angle. One is the equatorial angles and other is the axial angle. So so equatorial positions are there and axial positions are there. We will discuss this in detail. One more thing you need to remember regarding the VSEPR theory is that in this theory there is no distinction made between the s and p electrons. We only talk about valence electrons. So we take only the number of electron pairs which are present in the valence shell of the central atom, right? Let's now discuss the geometry of molecules in which the central atom has no lone pair of electrons, right? So let's see first the example of BeCl2. See, BeCl2, beryllium is having atomic number 4. Its electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2. There are 2 valence electrons around beryllium. Now it is to form bonds with chlorine. So in the formation of this beryllium BeCl2, each of the valence electrons, they are shared by 2 chlorine atoms, as a result of which the beryllium is surrounded by 2 electron pairs. That is, the central atom is surrounded by 2 electron pairs, which we call as the bond pairs. So these electron pairs try to stay as far apart as possible in order to minimize repulsion. So they adopt a linear geometry. So they adopt a linear geometry in which they try to be as far apart as possible, and the angle is 180 degree. We know that repulsion are weakest at 180 degree, right? So when there are 2 electron pairs around the central atom, the geometry adopted is what? Linear. Okay. Now we take the example of the next molecule where when there is 3 electron pairs around the central atom. So boron, the atomic number of boron is 5, right? So 1s2, 2s2, 2p1. So there are 3 electron pairs, there are 3 valence electrons in boron which form bonds with fluorine, right? So that is, there are 3 electron pairs. When such bonds are formed, then there are 3 electron pairs around the central atom. So when there are 3 electron pairs, they try to stay as far apart as possible, and in doing so they adopt a trigonal planar geometry in which all the FBF bond, they are at an angle of 120 degree, right? So this kind of trigonal planar geometry is found in BCl3, AlCl3. They have such shapes. Then we come to the geometry of, or the shape of, methane molecule. Now we see that carbon is having 4 valence electrons and it forms bonds with hydrogen, as a result of which it has 4 electron pairs around itself. That is, when there are 4 electron pairs around the central atom, it adopts a tetrahedral geometry. In this geometry, the HCH bond angle are of 109.5 degree or 109 degree 28 minutes. Okay, so that means that when there are 4 electron pairs, the geometry adopted is tetrahedral. When there are 2 electron pairs around the central atom, the geometry adopted is linear. When there are 3 electron pairs around the central atom, then the geometry adopted is trigonal planar. When there are 4 electron pairs around the central atom, the geometry adopted is tetrahedral. And now we talk of such kind of geometry is found in carbon tetrachloride, silicon tetrafluoride, SiH4, ammonium ions, right? Now we come to the shape of PCl5 molecule. Now phosphorus has 5 electron pairs around itself. There are 5 electron pairs around phosphorus, okay, because phosphorus has 5 electrons and there are 5 fluorines, so they make bonds, as a result of which there are 5 electron pairs around the central atom. Now when there are 5 electron pairs, the preferred geometry is a trigonal bipyramidal geometry. In this geometry, the bond angles, they are not equal. The 3 electron pairs are in the same plane at an angle of 120 degree, while the other 2, they are perpendicular to the plane, making an angle of 90 degree with the plane. So in PCl5, we have 2 kind of bonds. One is the equatorial bonds and the other are the axial bonds. So in equatorial bonds, these are the equatorial bonds, these 3, okay, these are the equatorial bonds and these are the axial bonds. And it has been found that axial bonds, they are longer than the equatorial bonds because they suffer greater repulsion, right? So we come to the next molecule, that is the SF6 molecule. Now sulfur is having 6 valence electrons, and those 6 valence electrons, they form bond with the fluorine atom, and so the molecule, the central atom has 6 electron pairs around itself, which are the bond pairs, and when there are 6 electron pairs, the geometry adopted is octahedral, and in this geometry all the bond angles, they are same and are of 90 degree, right? So we come to the next molecule, IF7. See, in all these cases, there are only bond pairs. There are no lone pairs. Okay. So shape of the IF7 molecule. Now, if you make shape of iodine, there are 7 valence electrons and they form bonds with the fluorine, as a result of which the central atom has 7 electron pairs around itself. When there are 7 electron pairs around the central atom, then it prefers to have a pentagonal bipyramidal geometry. In this, there are 2 types of bond angles. One is 72 degree and the other is at 90 degree. So these 5 bonds, they are at an angle of 72 degree, and these two are at an angle of 90 degree. So 5 electron pairs, they are at an angle of 72 degree, while the other 2, they are perpendicular to the plane, making an angle of 90 degree with the plane. So in this arrangement, 5 bond angles are of 72 degree and 2 are of 90 degree. So this is pentagonal bipyramidal arrangement. Let us now discuss the shapes of the molecules which contain lone pair as well as bond pair. For example, first we'll take molecules containing 3 electron pairs, right? So in this case we take the example of sulfur dioxide. Now this sulfur dioxide has 3 electron pairs around the central atom. You remember one postulate of the VSEPR theory was, let me show you the postulate again, that the multiple bond will be treated as if it is a single electron pair, and the 2 or 3 electron pairs of a multiple bond, they are treated as a single super pair. So we will treat this as a single super pair. So we will say that there are 3 electron pairs around the sulfur atom, and there 2 are bond pair and 1 is lone pair. So if there are 3 electron pairs around the central atom, the expected geometry of the molecule is trigonal planar, but the presence of this lone pair distorts the geometry, as a result of which sulfur dioxide is having a bent shape, or it is a V-shaped or angular shaped molecule, right? So in this way we say that the lone pair has distorted the geometry of the molecule, right? Then we come to the molecules which contain 4 electron pairs. In this case, first we will talk about, if there are 4 electron pairs around the central atom, the preferred geometry is tetrahedral. Okay, in this category we will talk about cases in which molecules contain 3 bond pair and 1 lone pair, like ammonia, and molecules which contain 2 bond pair and 2 lone pair, like water. First let us discuss the shape of ammonia. Now nitrogen is having how many electron pairs? There are 5 valence electrons of nitrogen, and out of 5 valence electrons, 3 valence electrons they form bonds with the hydrogen, and 1 remains as a lone pair. Now the electron pair around the central atom are 4, 3 are bond pair, 1 is lone pair. Now when there are 4 electron pairs around the central atom, the expected geometry is tetrahedral, but as out of the 4 electron pair, 3 are bond pair and 1 is lone pair, this lone pair distorts the geometry of the molecule, as a result of which the ammonia is having a pyramidal shape, right? Then we come to the molecules which contain 2 bond pair and 2 lone pair. Let us talk about water. The central atom is oxygen. Oxygen is having 6 valence electrons. Out of the 6 valence electrons, the 2 forms bond with hydrogen and the remaining 2 act as lone pair. Now there are total electron pairs around the central atom are 4 electron pairs, out of which there are 2 bond pair and 2 lone pair. Now the presence of this lone pair distorts the geometry of the molecule. When there are 4 electron pairs, the expected geometry is tetrahedral, but presence of this lone pair distorts the geometry, and therefore the molecule is having a bent shape, right? So water molecule shape is bent or it is angular. I hope this is clear. Then we come to the molecules which contain 5 electron pair around the central atom. Now in this we will discuss, there are 3 cases when there are 4 bond pair and 1 lone pair, example SF4. When there are 3 bond pair, 2 lone pair, example ClF3. When there are 2 bond pair and 3 lone pair, then xenon F2. Now, when there are 5 electron pairs around the central atom, the expected geometry is trigonal bipyramidal, but the presence of lone pair distorts the geometry. So, let's first talk about SF4 molecule. Now, see SF4 molecule, let me show you here. Sulfur is having 6 valence electrons. This is SF4 molecule. Sulfur is having 6 valence electrons. Let me write the 6 valence: 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. So they are forming bonds with fluorine, right? Right. So there are 4 bond pairs and 1 lone pair. Okay, so the best possible arrangement is when there are 5 electron pairs, the best possible arrangement is TBP. Now let us draw the TBP arrangement. It is like this. You will draw like this, the TBP arrangement, right? So I'll write the central atom sulfur here, and there are 4 electron pairs, right? So how I'll draw this is 4 bond pairs are there. So let me show you. These are the 4 bond pairs. This is fluorine, 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 and the fluorine. There are 4 bond pairs, and this lone pair prefers to occupy the equatorial position, okay, because it suffers minimum repulsion at this position. So now you can see this geometry resembles a seesaw, okay. So this is like a seesaw. So we call the geometry of SF4 as a seesaw molecule. I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, so this is a seesaw molecule. So the lone pair occupies the position where they suffer minimum repulsions, right? So let me talk about now the next example. See, I have discussed molecules which contain 4 bond pairs and 1 lone pair. So there were what? 4 bond pairs and there was 1 lone pair. Total 5 electron pair. And when there are 5 electron pair, the geometry is TBP, but the presence of 1 lone pair distorts the geometry and it is a seesaw shape, right? Now we come to the next example, that molecules which contain 3 bond pair and 2 lone pair. Let me talk of ClF3. Now chlorine is having how many valence electrons? 7 valence electrons, and out of those 7 valence electrons, 3 are to form bond with fluorine. So let me first make 3 bonds which are to be made by fluorine with fluorine. So right, so these are 1 2 3 4 5 and 6 7. Now how many bond pairs are there? There are 3 bond pairs and 1 lone pair. So if the, right, 2 lone pairs. So there are 3 bond pairs and 2 lone pairs, right? So total electron pairs are 5. When there are 5 electron pairs, the preferred geometry is TBP. And let me draw the TBP geometry here again. The TBP is trigonal bipyramidal. So it should be like this. I will put fluorine here. And now the lone pair, they prefer to occupy the equatorial position because at that point there is minimum repulsion. So the lone pair, they occupy these position, right? And this is the bond pairs, they occupy this position. So this is ClF. You can see here ClF and ClF, right? So you can see what kind of shape is ClF3 molecule having. It should have a TBP shape, but it cannot have a TBP shape because this lone pair distorts the geometry of the molecule. We know that lone pair repulsions are the maximum, as a result of which the shape of the molecule gets changed. Now if you closely observe this, you will find it is a T shape. So ClF, it's a T shape molecule. So it is a T shape molecule, you can see. So ClF3 is having what kind of shape? It is a T shaped molecule, right? So I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, now we'll talk of the next molecule, that is xenon F2, when there are 2 bond pairs and 3 lone pairs. Let us see xenon. See xenon. Now xenon is having how many electron pairs? 8. And we are talking of xenon F2. It is out of this 8, 2 are to form bonds. Let us first make the bonds which are to be formed with fluorine. So I'll just write like this. Okay. Now the remaining, out of 2, there are 6 are left. So 1, this is 1 electron pair, this is 2 electron pair, and this is 3rd electron. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Right. So there are in xenon F2, there are 3 lone pairs and there are 2 bond pairs. So total electron pairs are 5. So expected geometry should be TBP. But again, the lone pair distorts the geometry. Now let me draw the TBP geometry here. So I'll write like this, ClF. This is xenon and xenon. Now there are 3 lone pairs. They will prefer to occupy the equatorial positions. and they occupy the axial positions, and as a result of this you find the molecule shape is linear, right? So we can see now here SF4. So the best possible arrangement is when this is occupying, the lone pair occupies the equatorial position. So this is because at this point there is minimum repulsion. So in SF4, what kind of shape you are seeing? It is a seesaw shape. Seesaw is like this only. Have you ever seen seesaw in the playground? So it is like this. You must visualize that. So this is having a seesaw shape. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now we come to the next molecule, that is the ClF3. So we know that ClF3 is having what kind of shape? T shape, because the lone pairs, they occupy the equatorial positions. There are 2 lone pairs and 3 bond pairs. Then we come to the shape of the xenon molecule. So in xenon there are 3 lone pairs and 2 bond pairs. So the lone pairs, they occupy which position? Equatorial positions, and the bond pair occupies the axial positions. As a result of this, you can see that the xenon F2 is a linear molecule. Okay, so in this way, now let's come to the molecules which contain 4 bond pair and 2 lone pairs. Okay, now when there are 4 bond pairs and 2 lone pairs, let's see the example of xenon F4. Okay, now xenon F4, there are how many, like 4, xenon is having 8 electrons. Okay, 4 are involved in bonding with fluorine and 4 are left, right? So that means there are 4 are involved in bonding and the remaining 4 will act as 2 lone pairs. So when there are total electron pairs around xenon will be what? 6. Okay, out of 6 electron pair, 4 are bond pairs, 2 are lone pair. When there are 6 electron pairs around the central atom, then the preferred geometry is octahedral geometry. And in octahedral geometry, it is like this kind of geometry where all angles are at 90 degree, all positions are same, and the lone pairs, they occupy these positions, and as a result of this, the molecule is having a square planar shape, right? Now we come to the geometry of BRF5. Now BRF5 also is having 7 valence electrons. 5 of the valence electrons are involved in bond formation with fluorine, and as a result of this, there are only 1 is acting as a lone pair. So then when there are total 6 electron pairs are there, 5 with fluorine and 1 lone pair, total 6 electron pair. When there are 6 electron pair around the central atom, the preferred geometry is octahedral, but as there is 1 lone pair, so the geometry will be distorted and this lone pair occupy this position, so we call it as a square pyramidal shape. So the expected geometry was octahedral, but the presence of lone pair has distorted the geometry, and now the geometry of the molecule is square pyramidal. I hope this is clear to everyone. So we have discussed molecules which contain 6 electron pairs. If there are 6 electron pairs around the central atom, so the preferred geometry is octahedral, and when there are lone pairs, the lone pair distorts the geometry. As a result of this, BRF5 is having a square pyramidal shape and xenon F4 is having a square planar shape. Valence bond theory. The simple concept of covalent bond formation as a result of sharing of electrons does not provide any clue regarding the forces that operate between the atoms. It also does not tell us that why there is a difference in the bond dissociation enthalpies and bond lengths in different molecules. For example, we take hydrogen and fluorine. Both are having a single covalent bond, but we see that their bond dissociation enthalpies are different, as well as their bond lengths are also different. Also, this simple picture of covalent bonding does not give us any idea regarding the shapes of polyatomic molecules. The Vesper theory tells us about the shape of simple molecules, but it also has limited applications. To overcome the limitations, the 2 important theories which were based on quantum mechanical principles were introduced. These are the valence bond theory and the molecular orbital theory. The valence bond theory was put forward by Hitler and London, and later on it was developed by Pauling and Slater in 1931. Let us see the valence bond treatment for hydrogen molecule. For example, this is the two atoms of hydrogen. This is atom A, this is atom B, and they are approaching each other, and they have nuclei HA and HB, and the corresponding electrons are EA and EB. So when these atoms are at large distance from each other, then there is no interaction between the two atoms. And at that stage, the total energy of the system is the sum of the energies of the individual atoms. But when the atoms, they start coming closer to each other, new attractive and repulsive forces begin to operate. So first we had the attractive forces as HA, EA and HB, EB. These were the attractive forces. And when the atoms, they approach each other, then new attractive forces come into picture, that is HA, EB and HB, EA. These are the new attractive forces. So old attractive forces have been shown by this broken line, and the new attractive forces are shown by this solid line. Okay. So the repulsive forces are the EA, EB and HA, HB. Now experimentally it has been proved that the magnitude of attractive forces is more than the new repulsive forces, as a result of which the two atoms, they approach each other, and when they approach each other, the potential energy of the system decreases. Let us now discuss the potential energy diagram for the formation of hydrogen molecule, in which potential energy is plotted as a function of internuclear distance between the hydrogen atoms. Now here we will discuss in three stages. In stage A, the atoms, they are far apart, and here there is no attractive or repulsive interaction between them, and the potential energy of the system, that is the potential energy of the isolated hydrogen atom, is assumed to be what? 0. Now we find that in stage B, the atoms start approaching close to each other, and in this, when the atoms start approaching close to each other, the potential energy of the system starts decreasing. Ultimately, a stage is reached where the total force of attraction becomes equal to the force of repulsion, and the system acquires minimum energy. At this stage, the two hydrogen atoms, they are said to be bonded together to form a stable molecule, and the distance between the atoms is known as what? Bond length. In hydrogen molecule, the distance between two hydrogen atoms corresponding to minimum energy is 74 picometer, right? So it has been shown in three stages. Now if the hydrogen atoms, if they are brought closer than 74 picometer, then what happens? The repulsive forces, they become large, and the potential energy of the system rises. Okay. Let us now discuss on the basis of valence bond theory that why helium molecule is not formed. See, in the formation of a helium molecule, let us first see the attractive forces. These broken lines represents the old forces, and the solid lines represents the new forces. Now what happened is, first you see the old forces, that this is one helium atom nucleus, these are the two electrons, so there are forces between them. This is another helium atom, these are the two electrons, and these are the forces between them. So when these atoms are far apart, then these are the forces which operate between them. But when these atoms, they approach close to each other, then new attractive forces come into picture. So let us see the new attractive forces. That is, this attractive force will be between the nucleus of one helium atom and the electron of the other. And so in this way we find that there are 2 and 2 for this. There are 4 new attractive forces, right? Now let us see the repulsive forces. When the atoms were far apart, the repulsive forces were between the the electrons of the same atom, right? So these are the old repulsive forces, and let us see the new repulsive forces when the atoms they come closer to each other. So the first is from between the electron of one and the electron of the other. So this is the first repulsive force, electron of this and electron of other. Then again, so this electron of this and electron of this, third electron of this and electron of this, fourth, and between the nucleus. So there are 5 new repulsive forces. We know that when there are more repulsive forces, then the potential energy of the system increase, and which leads to instability. Thus helium-2 represents an unstable state, and a chemical bond is so not formed between the helium atom, and hence helium molecule is not formed, right? Let's discuss the orbital overlap concept. See, when two atoms they approach each other, their atomic orbitals they merge, and this is known as overlapping of atomic orbitals. The overlapping of orbitals results in pairing of electrons. The strength of a covalent bond depends upon the extent of overlapping. The greater the overlapping, the stronger is the bond formed between two atoms. Let us discuss the formation of a hydrogen molecule. Let's see here. See, a hydrogen atom has one electron in its 1s orbital. Now, according to the Pauli's exclusion principle, an orbital can hold 2 electrons of opposite spin. When these two atoms having electrons with opposite spin, they approach each other, then their orbitals overlap. Due to the overlapping, the atomic orbitals they merge into a bigger cloud called the molecular orbital, and this molecular orbital contains both the electrons. So according to the orbital theory, the formation of a covalent bond between two atoms result by pairing of electrons with opposite spin belonging to the valence shell of two atoms. Now let us discuss the types of overlaps. The overlaps can be positive overlaps, negative overlaps, or the zero overlaps. Now in case of positive overlap, we take the example here. See, these are the pz orbitals. They overlap along the internuclear axis, and the lobes are overlapping lobes have the same sign. So we can see here the overlapping lobes have the same sign. So this is an example of a positive overlap or in phase overlap. Now we see the negative overlap. In case of pz, we find that they overlap along the internuclear axis, but the lobes, the overlapping lobes have different signs, positive sign and negative sign. So they have opposite sign. As a result of this, such an overlap is known as negative overlap. See, if the bond formation is to take place, then they should have the same sign and same orientations. Then only a bond will be formed. Now this is an example of zero overlap, also known as out of phase overlap. So this is because of the different orientations. So because of different orientations, they are not able to overlap, and as a result, no bond formation take place. So bond formation take place only when they have the same sign and same orientation in space. So this is an example of positive overlap where they are having same sign and same orientation. They are in phase overlap. This is out of phase overlap. This is an out of phase overlap and also called as zero overlap. Now let us discuss the different types of covalent bonds formed as a result of overlapping. So the different types, depending on the types of overlapping, the covalent bonds can be sigma bond or they can be pi bond. Now what is a sigma bond? The sigma bond is known as a head-on overlapping. See, these are of different types. One is the SS overlapping, SP overlapping, and PP overlapping. Now let's see the SS overlapping. In this type, the half-filled s orbitals, they overlap along the internuclear axis. So this is an head-on overlap or end-to-end overlap, right? So this also is known as head-on overlap or axial overlap. So this results in the formation of a sigma bond. Now we see the sp overlapping. In sp overlapping, this type of overlapping occurs between the half-filled s orbital of one atom and the half-filled p orbital of the other atom, which is along, this p orbital is along the internuclear axis. So they form a bond, and this is known as a sigma bond, and or formed by sp overlapping. Now the p orbitals, this type of overlapping occurs between half-filled p orbitals of the two approaching atoms. So this is an example of pp overlap. This again results in the formation of a sigma bond, which we can represent like this. This is the way we represent the sigma bond, right? Now we come to the pi bond. See, this is a pi bond. In this type of covalent bond is formed by the sidewise overlap of the half-filled atomic orbitals. So this is known as lateral overlap or sidewise overlap, right? So the atomic orbitals overlap in such a way that their axes, they remain parallel to each other and perpendicular to the internuclear axis. Okay, so the orbital formed as a result of sidewise overlap consists of two saucer type charge cloud above and below the plane of the participating atoms. So this is the p orbital, this is p orbital, this is pp overlap, right? So let us see the strength of sigma and pi bond. The strength we have already discussed depends upon the extent of overlapping. So in the formation of a sigma bond, the overlapping takes place to a larger extent because this is a end-to-end or head-on overlapping. So on the other hand, in the formation of a pi bond, the overlapping, as it is a sidewise overlapping, so this is not, its extent is not that strong, or its extent is not that great as in case of a sigma bond. So a sigma bond, because it has more overlapping, so it is stronger than a pi bond. Let us now see the difference between sigma bond and pi bond. See, a sigma bond is formed by the end-to-end filled atomic orbitals along the internuclear axis. The overlapping can be between two s orbital, one s and one p, or two p orbitals. A pi bond is formed by the sidewise overlap of two half-filled p orbitals. Then, in this case, the overlapping takes place to a larger extent, so the bond formed is stronger. In the formation of a pi bond, the overlapping occurs to a lesser extent because it is sidewise and therefore the bond is weak. The molecular orbitals is symmetrical about the internuclear axis. So the molecular orbital is symmetrical. Here the molecular orbital is discontinuous and consists of two charge clouds, which you can see here above and below the plane of the atoms, right? So here in sigma bond there can be free rotation of atoms around the sigma bond. But in case of pi bond, because the overlapping of electron cloud is above and below the plane of the atom, so free rotation is not possible around pi bond. Then the bond is present between two atoms either alone or along with pi bond. So sigma bond can exist alone, but pi bond is always in addition to sigma bond. So the bond is always present between two atoms in addition to sigma bond. Then in the formation of the sigma bond, s orbitals participate. Here the s orbitals, in formation of a pi bond, the s orbitals cannot participate in the formation of pi bond. Okay, so in sigma bond s orbitals participate. Also px, s and px or pz can participate. See, right? So we can see here s orbital participate, one s and one p can participate. Okay, the only thing they need to have is that they should have same sign of the lobes, and also they should have same orientations. As they all are having the same orientation, so this is a positive overlap, and because this is an end-to-end overlapping, so the extent of overlapping is more, so the bond formed is a stronger bond. Hybridization. In order to explain the geometrical shape of polyatomic molecules like methane, ammonia, water, Pauling introduced the concept of hybridization. Let us first understand the meaning of hybridization. It is the phenomena of intermixing of orbitals which have slightly different energies so as to redistribute their energies, resulting in the formation of new orbitals of equivalent energies and shape. For example, we have one 2s and three 2p orbitals of carbon they hybridize, and there is a formation of 4 new sp3 hybrid orbitals. We call it as sp3 because it is 1s and 3p. Okay, so this is sp3 hybrid orbitals. Now these orbitals have similar energy, equivalent energy. So this 2s and 2p, they differ slightly in energies, and they intermix, and there is an intermixing of these orbitals having slightly different energies in order to get new orbitals which have equivalent energies. So let us understand the salient features of hybridization. First, the number of hybrid orbital is equal to the number of atomic orbitals that get hybridized. For example, it was 1 2s and 3 2p. So the new hybrid orbital formed were 4, right? So as 4 atomic orbitals were there, the hybrid orbital will also be 4. So the number of hybrid orbital is equal to the number of the atomic orbitals that get hybridized. The second is the hybridized orbitals, they are equivalent in energy and shape, right? So hybridized orbitals, they have equivalent energies. Then the third feature is the hybrid orbitals, they are more effective in forming bonds than the pure atomic orbitals, right? So the hybrid orbitals, they are directed in some preferred directions to have minimum repulsions and thus having a stable arrangement. So the type of hybridization tells us about the geometry of the molecules. So the important conditions for hybridization are the orbitals present in the valence shell of the atom are hybridized. Then the orbitals which undergo hybridization, they should have almost equal energy. There should not be much energy difference between them. Promotion of electron is not essential condition prior to hybridization. There can be promotion of electron or there cannot be. This point will become more clear as we move further. It is not necessary that only half-filled orbitals participate in hybridization. In some cases, even filled orbitals of valence shell take part in hybridization. So these 2 points will be more clear as we move, as we'll be doing more examples, right? Now we come to the type of hybridization. The type of hybridization is one is sp hybridization. Here there is 1s and 1p which is involved in intermixing. Okay. Then the second type is sp2 hybridization. 1s and 2p orbitals, they mix together to form this kind of hybridization. Then we have the third kind of hybridization as sp3 hybridization. So in this 1s and 3p orbitals, they mix together. Then we have the next kind of hybridization which involves the d orbitals, that is the dsp3 hybridization, or we also have the d2sp3 hybridization where there is involvement of d orbitals. So we will study about these different kind of hybridizations.